Thank you for tuning in. I hope you are all cozy in bed or comfy on a couch, so grab a snack and get ready to be creeped out by these allegedly true alien encounters. Let's begin. It was late, around 2 a.m., and I was sitting on my couch, half watching some old documentary about ancient civilizations. The light from the TV flickered, casting weird shadows across my living room. My dog Rocky was curled up at my feet, snoring quietly. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then, the knocking started. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but it came again. 3 sharp knocks, one after the other. I froze. We don't get visitors at this hour, and I wasn't expecting anyone. My heart began to race, and Rocky lifted his head, ears perked. I got up slowly, walking to the door. Through the peephole, I saw nothing, just the empty porch. I opened the door a crack, feeling a sudden unease in my stomach. "Hello?" I called out, half expecting a prank or maybe a neighbor in distress. No response, just the hum of the streetlights outside. I was about to close the door when I saw something. Movement, just at the edge of my vision. I glanced down. A figure. It wasn't a person. It wasn't human either. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, thin. Its skin a pale, almost translucent gray. The shape of its head was strange, with no visible ears, a smooth surface, and 2 large, dark eyes that reflected the dim light from the street lamp. It didn't make a sound, didn't move, just stood there, staring at me. My mind raced. I wanted to slam the door shut, but my body wouldn't obey. I stood frozen, heart pounding, feeling like I was locked in some kind of bizarre dream. Rocky started growling softly, still sitting by my feet, his fur standing on end. The creature tilted its head slightly, almost as if studying me. I could see its breath, or at least what I thought was its breath, thin, wispy tendrils of mist coming from its mouth, even though the air was warm. I don't know how much time passed, seconds, maybe minutes. I just stared at it, and it stared back. There was no communication, no voice, no words, just that overwhelming feeling that something was off, something unexplainable. Eventually, the creature turned, its long limbs moving in a way that was both graceful and unnerving. It didn't walk. It drifted, almost like it was gliding over the ground. Within seconds, it was gone, vanishing into the night. I closed the door with shaking hands, locking it behind me. I sat back down on the couch, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it a dream? Some kind of hallucination? My mind wanted to dismiss it, but the feeling of dread lingered in my chest. The rest of the night passed quietly, but I didn't sleep. I couldn't. It was a quiet night in Roswell, New Mexico. Just the kind of night where the vast, open sky feels like it's swallowing up everything. I'd been on the road all day, driving across the desert, and I wasn't expecting much when I pulled into town. My motel was a small, outdated place, the kind that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s, but I was tired, so it worked for me. I just finished dinner at a greasy diner down the road and was walking back to my room when I noticed something strange. The air had that stillness to it, like everything had suddenly quieted down. Even the usual desert insects were silent. I stopped by my car for a moment, thinking I heard a low hum in the distance. It wasn't the sound of any plane or car engine, more like a vibrating hum that you feel deep in your chest. Curious, I turned in the direction it was coming from, toward the edge of town, near the fields. Nothing but a few scattered lights and open land. I'm not the type to go chasing after weird noises, but something about it tugged at me. So, against my better judgment, I decided to walk over to the edge of the field to see if I could figure out what was going on. The hum grew louder the closer I got, and my gut told me it was something mechanical, but not anything I'd ever heard before. I got to a point where I could see the outline of something in the distance, half hidden by the low hills and desert shrubs.
At first, I thought it might be some kind of military vehicle. Roswell is, after all, famous for its UFO crash rumors. But this didn't look like anything I'd seen in a museum or on TV. The object was flat, round, and silver. It reflected the moonlight in a way that didn't seem right, almost like it was glowing faintly, and it was hovering just a few feet off the ground. The hum was louder now, almost like a constant low vibration that rattled in your bones. I should have turned around. I knew that, but my feet were glued to the ground. My heart was racing, but my legs felt frozen, like I couldn't move. Then for a brief moment, I saw something standing next to the object, a figure. It was tall, thinner than a person should be, with a long, slender body and no real distinction between its arms and legs. The skin was a pale gray, almost translucent in the moonlight. The figure stood motionless, staring at the ground, not seeming to notice me. Or maybe it did, and it didn't care. For what felt like forever, I just stood there, watching. The hum grew louder, almost deafening now, and the figure didn't move, didn't acknowledge me at all. I don't know how long I stood there, just staring. But eventually, a strange feeling washed over me, like I was in the presence of something I couldn't understand, something I wasn't meant to see. I don't know why I did it, but I turned and started walking back to my motel. Slowly at first, then faster, until I was practically running. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was back inside my room, locked behind the door, safe. I haven't told anyone about it. Who would believe me? And honestly, I'm not sure I believe it myself, but I know what I saw. I can't explain it, and maybe that's for the best. Some things, I guess, are better left alone.
It was late, just past midnight, when I saw it. The fire had died down to a few glowing embers, and the woods around our campsite were quiet. Too quiet. My friend John was already asleep in his tent, and I was sitting alone by the fire, just staring into the fading light, trying to shake off the weird feeling I'd had all evening. It had been a good day. Hiking, fishing, the usual camping stuff. But something about the night felt off. Maybe it was the way the trees seemed to loom a little too close, or how still the air was. The forest usually had a rhythm, but tonight it was as if everything had gone silent. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just a raccoon, or some other small animal moving around the campsite. I'd left some food out, and we were in bear country, so I figured that was the source of the rustling. But then it came again, closer this time, and it wasn't the usual sound of paws or claws on the ground. It was heavier, like something big moving slowly through the underbrush. I felt my skin crawl. I stood up, straining my eyes in the dark, trying to see what was out there. That's when I saw it. My dog, Bandit, was standing at the edge of the camp, staring into the woods. His fur was standing up, and he was growling, low and deep. It was the kind of growl I'd never heard from him before, the kind that sent a chill down your spine. I called out to him, but he didn't move. In fact, he was fixated on something. I didn't want to leave the fire, but I couldn't stand the thought of him out there alone in the dark. So I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward him. The beam of light cut through the trees, and that's when I saw it. A shape, just beyond the tree line, hovering a few feet off the ground. I froze. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything I could explain. The thing was large, but its shape was hard to make out. It seemed to shimmer, like it was made of light and shadow at the same time. There were no sharp edges, no obvious structure. Just a glowing, fluid mass, almost like it was alive. And beneath it, just a few feet away, was Bandit. He wasn't barking, he wasn't moving. He was standing completely still, his eyes wide and fixed on whatever this thing was. I felt a lump in my throat. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. The hum of the air, the rustling of leaves.
Even the sound of my own heartbeat, all of it stopped. It was like the world was holding its breath. Then, just like that, the shape shifted, almost too quickly for me to comprehend. There was a flash of light, a strange buzzing sound, and I saw Bandit. Bandit was lifting off the ground. I can't even explain how it happened. 1 second, he was standing there, and the next, he was floating, like something invisible had grabbed hold of him. The light around him seemed to intensify, and before I could even take another breath, he was gone, vanished, as if swallowed up by the night. I don't know what happened after that. I remember standing there, holding the flashlight, just staring at the empty space where Bandit had been. The rustling returned and the light faded, but I couldn't move. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Was it a dream? A trick of the light? I don't know. All I know is that when I finally gathered the courage to run back to the camp and wake John, Bandit was gone. I searched for hours, calling his name, wandering through the woods with the flashlight, but there was nothing. Just the emptiness of the forest. It's been a year since that night, and I still don't know what happened. I've asked around, but no one in town has seen anything like it. I've thought about going back to that spot, but something in me tells me that if I do, I might find more than I'm ready for. So, I don't talk about it much. But I know what I saw. And I know what happened to Bandit. Whatever it wasn't human, and I don't think it was of this world. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know down in the comments which story was your favorite. Please consider liking and subscribing for more creepy stories. And be vigilant out there. You never know what's lurking about.